He leaves the four horsemen stranded. Yeah, that book is considerably earlier.
Oh yes, that's exactly what I want. One more. Thank you. Thank you so much. Very nice. Hi, Harold and Mom.
Sorry about that. Started to talk to those people, word started to spread, and hey, there's this guy making themes by the Damn it. I mean, you probably managed to handle the gremlins on kid.
So, Bob, who's our third? Danny and I were fans summer camp until we see each other again. So this is, of course, 40 years of saving the day, the panel about the Ghostbusters and the franchise, how it's been, its history, its fandom, and so forth. You can see where discussion goes. Probably all introduce ourselves, so you know who's blabbing up here for the next 50 minutes or so. Start on the left.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael Gillen, and I am the strategies lead for the Pacific Northwest Ghostbusters. It's a coalition of about 5 clubs total, in Washington primarily, but there's some now I think in Idaho, some in Oregon, even some in Vancouver. You can find us on Facebook under, just look up PNW Ghostbusters as one word, you can find us there. So we have a community, it's about 750 strong. Primary membership is about 75 for the PNW. I've been involved for about 2 years. Shout out to our founder, Lex Sanchez. He couldn't be here today, but he started this back in 2010, and I met him just at the tag end of COVID with a few you here in the room. Yeah, it's a big year for us. We have a lot going on with the 40th anniversary, such as this panel. But other than that, I wanted to say thank you for all of my fellow members that have joined us today, and all those that are not yet our members today. Thank you.
My name is Bob Foster. I'm a longtime panelist and film reviewer for Crypticon. Tried my favorite company since 2010. More in official capacity the last couple years, which is nice. I joined this group last year after I met Michael at Emerald City Comic Con at the Blue Mouse, which will show the 40th anniversary show Ghostbusters 1 and 2 on the 6th, right?
Yes.
Yes, on the 6th. Tickets aren't available yet. I was checking this morning, but they will eventually.
Tickets are going June.
June.
Tickets will go live probably right after Crypticon.
Yes,
Stay
not
tuned.
Monday.
Yeah.
So next month, around 40th, we're showing Ghostbusters 1 and 2 at the Blue Mouse Theater, so check it out. And Blue Mouse does awesome stuff around anyway for Friday Night Frights and various other shows. But I will pass it down to Danny.
And I feel horribly underdressed. Apparently I'm the Ghostbuster you get when you call on Wish. But
You're good,
some
bro.
of these other people
You're the ones from Filmation.
are the real deal here. But I am getting Knightmare. I'm a horror addict. I have a channel on YouTube called Horror Addicts with my lovely wife, Gory Movies. This is there we review, unbox, and play all things horror. And yeah, I've been doing that since 2015. I've been a panelist since 2015. And been coming to Crypticon since 2009, yeah. And my kid is now a teenager, and he has kind of rebelled against most things horror, but there's one thing he still loves is Ghostbusters, and we bond over that.
Good for him. That's good.
Which brings me into the first thing I wanted to throw out there, about kids, and we're all different ages, we all came into Ghostbusters at different points. Can you share your first experience with the franchise and kind of where it led you into?
Well, Ghostbusters came out in '84. I was born in '83. I didn't see it, I don't know exactly when I saw it, but I saw it and I fell in love with it. I know I saw it around the same time when Scrooged came out. The other Bill Murray that came out in '88.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason at that age, I was starting to recognize actors. And I thought that maybe Scrooged was kind of a prequel to Ghostbusters. That's why he hates ghosts so much and wants to capture them and kill them, because they mess with him on Christmas time. But then I got a little older, and then the sequel came out in '89, and I'm like, okay, they're not related, but it's just, I love ghosts, I love Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and I started getting the video games. However, I have to say, the first time I got my hands on the NES game, I was so disappointed in that game. That was my E.T. Christmas moment. I was like, oh, this should be so good, and I don't even know what to do.
My neighbors had it, we never get anywhere.
There is a method to it, and as an
First
adult,
Michael.
I've gone, gotten at least to that stairwell that's from hell. But it was a very disappointing childhood. But I love the cartoon, even though there was another confusing cartoon that came out around the same time, but different name. Gorilla. I don't know. I just was a huge fan. I love Venkman, and especially because he's snarky, and he was like the Raphael, because I loved Ghostbusters for him. I loved Turtles for Raphael. I just wanted to be snarky, and that's what I'm gonna bring up here. Some snark. Why you guys bust?
Or both.
All right.
Yeah. So I was born in '82, so I was there. It was '92 when the first movie came out, but I remember seeing things when I was smaller. But then I think Real Ghostbusters was my entry point. Seeing that on TV made me interested in everything that came after that. But it's funny, the local station where I was in West Virginia at that point, they would play both of them back to back, so it'd be confusing. I'd be turning it on, expecting to find the ones that the real Ghostbusters.
They both came
that
out in '86, like the
Yeah.
cartoon. The other one's based off that '70s live action show,
Yeah.
but the cartoons both came out in '86. So it was very confusing.
Well, that's on purpose, from Filmation.
Exactly.
And then that was like my main entry point. Then eventually seeing on TV with the whole pan scan, the cut across, and when you miss half the people, Egon's not in half the movie because he's off screen. But there's one of those movies that every time I'd see it on TV, I'd have to stop and watch. But I remember it was my first costume back when I was, a couple years old. If my dad was sentimental in any way, I would probably still have these photos. But after my mom died, he got rid of a lot of photos, unfortunately. But I remember my brother and I getting the costumes for Christmas and getting little plastic packs and with the foam and running around my grandparents' house. And that kind of started everything. I'm a huge ghost nut generally, and I blame Ghostbusters for that. And Ghostbusters 2 came out when I was 7. I was like the perfect age for that. And then I'll stop being anxious talk in a second. But it was the first VHS I remember someone handed to me. It was on my 8th birthday, and my neighbor gave me a VHS that. Bobby, this is yours. This is your tape. And I know, of course, we had them in the house at that point, but this is the first one I remember being specifically given to me. So I've treasured that VHS that I wore through. I still have it somewhere, but it definitely wouldn't play if I found the VHS anymore because it was just so worn.
That's what we did back then. We watched our favorite VHSs over and over again. My kid doesn't get that with the streaming being available and stuff, but that's what we did.
What's funny is
There's definitely one that I wore out.
I think she got a promotion from somewhere because it says, if found, return to Coca-Cola. Occasionally at the bottom every few scenes. So I think she got it through her work and maybe she worked with Coke. So it's a weird promotional thing. Now I'm used to seeing that pop up and it doesn't. It's weird.
So I was born in '75. So when I was 9, Ghostbusters was in theaters. And what was interesting about it is my parents didn't take us to the movies much. But I remember my first drive-in movie was Cave.
That's a great movie.
Oh my God. Anyway.
Actually, I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie now. Yeah, I love it. The egg was the best part. But anyway, I remember we had an early dinner and my dad said, "Get in the car." I said, "Where are we going?" Just, "You'll know when you know." So we got in the car, we got to the theater, and it was like a 9 o'clock showing, opening weekend. And I just remember just lots of laughs, lots of great humor, loved the subject matter. You know, there's points in your life when something really invigorates your mind, and you're leaving like at 11:40 p.m. or whatever, and whenever that's out of the theater, you don't feel tired. You just feel like, what am I going to do with all this? And I kept it close to my heart for ever since then. Of course, when 2 came out in '89, and a bit of the cartoon, but it wasn't until probably when you reach that point where you're truly out on your own, move the family for a job promotion, get your first house, and then I built that. So finally got to build one in 2009. And the great part too is, my daughters and my son, they all love watching it with me. My son especially. It's really funny because he's 17 now, and last year at Blue Mouse, I got him a ticket to go to the theater, but he said, "So Dad, am I putting it on?" I said, "Putting on what?" And he says, "No." And I said, "Is this the first time you're actually asking me without prompting that you want to put on the suit and the pack?" He goes, "Yeah." So for the first time, we cosplayed together as Ghostbusters at the Blue Mouse. And the cool part was he kind of looked like Finn Wolfhard with the long hair, and he even wore the Chuck Connor Converse. So he without even trying, he looked the part. Everybody gave him a lot of compliments on it. And he also met his girlfriend there, which was actually a bonus. He kind of felt embarrassed, like, "Why are you embarrassed? You're doing what you love, you're doing what you enjoy." And he said, "Yeah, I guess you're right." So.
As in they met at that show, or she came to the show?
She was a classmate, but apparently seeing him festooned as a Ghostbuster kind of like over the top. So
it's the
dating tip, everybody,
dating
tip, yeah. But yeah, he enjoyed it, and it's really neat because he actually asked me if he could keep the cover. I said, "Yeah." So now he's official.
But son keeps asking me when I'm going to get him coveralls. Like, "Dude, you're 3, you're going to grow quick."
It's funny you mention that. When my son was a toddler, I had the original patch, and had extras, and he had this little green and black backpack that he would wear all the time. Well, we sewed one of the patches on his backpack, and he would not take the thing off. He'd nap in it, sleep in it, eat in it. He still has it. We found it in his storage, and he said, "You gonna keep it?" He goes, "Yeah, mine keep a lunch bag." So it's about this big, so it'll work.
And that's, I think, one thing that really helps this franchise and keeping it going for 40 years across 5 movies, 3 television shows, if you count Slimer as its own thing or not, many comics across the board. I was going to do an introduction where I was going to say, "Oh yeah, I got the 5 movies and all this," and show some of the various toys and stuff, because the comics are a lot of fun. Over 5 different publishers over the course of the 40 years, is that kids keep coming back to it. It started out, as a PG, but a pretty much adult comedy with a lot of fun things for kids. But I found it really fun how much kids jump into it. As we talked about, we watched it when we were like 3, and like, "Oh my, it's the best thing ever." Like, I still holds up. I have a 3-year-old who's 100% into Ghostbusters. Of course, it helps that he's surrounded by Ghostbuster stuff at the house. Between this and the toys that are now in his room that he plays with. But he knows all the names. Like he'll just list all of them. And all the stories of Ghostbusters. It's funny how he mixes them up on purpose, because between the new ones the 2016 ones, the originals. Like he jumps back and forth. Like I think Holtzman and Peter are his favorites. But all of you, a bunch of my wife's chagrin, because she likes it, but not to the same degree. She always does, let's play Ghostbusters, and it would back and forth. You're Patty. No, you're Peter. I'm Gozer. And it was funny watching him at the playground. Apparently, give us looks. He comes out the playground and goes, "Choose the form of the destructor." The choice is made. And somebody, because we have the little golden books for Ghostbusters 84 and 16, so he has those memorized. So he'll pick up those lines and we'll watch little clips in there. But do you guys want to talk about like why we think that attaches to kids that even with the more adult matter of the originals, of course now they've become more kid friendly over time?
Yeah, a little bit. I want to kind of touch in on my kid's little moments on some of that. My kid's 19 now. Like I said, he still loves Ghostbusters. A few things like whodunits, but he's not into horror so much anymore. However, he's my stepson, and I first met him when he was 5. And the first Halloween we ever had together, we all went out as Ghostbusters and whatnot. So it was like a good thing to bond for right away. I had the new, well, it wasn't quite new, it was a couple years old at that point, the PS3 game, and which I loved. I consider that the third movie, to be honest, because all the voices were there. But he would come over when Gory was in roller derby, and I'd babysit him, and he would cry when she'd get done and come back and get him because he just wanted to play Ghostbusters with me all night long. So that game, he wouldn't even like. He was the type because he had your protopack and you could just blow away the scenery in the game. That was just like a cool feature that you could just destroy everything, and he wouldn't leave a room until it was completely destroyed. It takes forever for him to get anywhere in the game.
That's one of the very fun.
Lots of field testing.
Exactly.
Okay.
So.
Nice.
But
Let's split up. We can do more damage.
Yeah,
It's also, he was the youngest panelist that Crypticon ever had here. He came here because he also loves Scooby-Doo and he got to meet Matthew Lillard. But he was on the panel that we were doing introducing your kids to horror. And Ghostbusters is a huge thing. And we saw it when we were little. It is a PG movie with a lot of adult humor. but a lot of that kind of went over our heads and we just saw these insane ghosts that, and like special effects that I still think look better now then than even the newer ones. I loved the newer ones, but I just think that looks so good and like it just looks so real in its own way, like its own unique style.
I got something to add to that. And I think what really did it for me then, and I think for even my children, was there's a good suspension of disbelief, but there's also the fact that in some ways, we're not going to go over the science of it, that's Bo. But the whole thing was, they literally cobbled together, as Venkman says, a refrigerator on my back, to snare and then the trap to trap them. But the whole thing about it is it gave you this whole, kind of like an ecosystem. Like, okay, there is a way to do this, this is how we do it, and this is how we clean it up at the end, or make more of a mess at the end. And I think that was neat because it actually put a lot of, there's a lot of buy-in on seeing stuff like this, because nowhere else does this exist. I mean, some of us in the know that like the bottom half of this is based off of an airborne radar on a jet plane, you know, and there's the lovely thing of pneumatics tied into wiring, tied into pressure valves, and random spec plates everywhere. I mean, it's the way this thing came together. To me, it's a great statement piece. I mean, when you saw the Omni magazine cover that they did in the montage, I mean, I have that print because that's an iconic print to me, almost like the Apple commercial with the sledgehammer, you know, kind of a thing. But anyway, I just think that for me, that in the imagination portion of our lives, we can see where that would definitely be possible.
This stuff feels real because of that. It's not
Yeah.
as much as I love more supernatural based stuff, but a lot of like say haunting movies are screaming away the ghost by the end or finding some way to destroy it. This you have a physical way of trapping. They're exterminators essentially. You know, it's a very down to earth way of looking at a very big supernatural thing, and that's something I really appreciate. It makes it feel real. It makes it have that more of that timelessness in many ways.
I mean, there's obviously a supernatural element because there's ghosts in the beginning, like just the fact that there's ghosts, but they've really combined it with a science.
Yes.
So it feels like when I watch those movies, it almost felt like someday I could grow up to be a Ghostbuster the same way I could be a firefighter or a police
Dress
officer.
for the job
or
you
anything,
want.
right?
Blue
Exactly.
collar.
Dress for the job
It
you
just
want.
felt like it was gonna somehow be a real occupation in my little kid mind.
They're blue collar heroes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, and you don't have to be a Tangina and Poltergeist to be able to see the spirits. You can just go over it's right there, shoot something at it.
Yes.
My wife hates the shooting aspect because we're trying to keep guns from our house, but she accepts it for that. But like,
Alright, I had like the original little like the toy one that they had for these where you had the like the little flashlight on it. And then I also had like this little play school flashlight and switch colors, and that's the one I'd give my cousin. And we'd go around like at night in the house and like play Ghostbusters in the dark. We'd put like the figures up in there and like bust them with the flashlights.
yeah, right now Vincent picks up whatever and says, "This is my proton pack." And his favorite thing right now is to use that for as a lawn ornament for Halloween lawn ornament of a skeleton going like this, and that's our proton pack. And then PKE meters. What's funny, we have a toy version of this. He has a toy version of this, the blue one that came out a couple years ago. He won't let me turn it on because it makes too much noise. But he ignores it as a PKE meter. To him, it's a proton pack, and the stick over there is a PKE meter.
To each time.
But so since Michael, you're a little older, so you were around for Ghostbusters game, was starting to get bigger. It's to note about how big it was at the time. So this came out June 8th, 1984, with a $13 million budget, which would now be about, I figured out the thing, about $90 million currently. And it made $229 million in its opening run, which is huge now, but at the time it was $189 million. With inflation, it's $889 million, which is about $30 million more than Avengers Endgame.
I was drunk that night.
There we go.
I went to a haunted house in Kashmir. It was on someone's farm, and their precision heat sensing. Yeah, no. It took a lot of makeup artistry behind that long dead bag hair.
Second one, same year, different movie.
I'd like to go to a Comic-Con.
I watch everything you do. I'm not through with you. I know everything you do. The things I'll do to you.
Alright, have a good one. She's never bought it.
You're really fucking cute. At least that's what they tell me.
We already saw that back.
Shut up, bitch.
Oh, because it's a berry. And I also need
We get more than 25 people, so that's not a problem. So we probably don't even need to do this because we could just talk about it. But I had this whole thing set up on poll everywhere to light for each of the stages.
sit in the front, guys. If you
Yeah.
want.
But we also have Seth came up with. Yeah, if we don't mind.
No, please.
Seth came up with a really cool branching timeline of all the different versions of all the different timelines. And I had independently come up with something similar. So there's 2 different versions of it, and there's enough for everybody to get the color copies that I made.
That's so cool.
So if you guys want to grab one of these.
My friend Zach, he has the channel CZ's World. He always calls it the subway station of Halloween.
Yeah.
Like, which one are you gonna get off on?
Yeah.
Here, I got that in multiple different ways.
Thank you for printing this. I've never printed it out. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no worries.
This world for that. Here.
I'm so sorry. Oh wow! I just saw the Hank Hill. I
Oh, I
didn't
know,
see
it's a
the
big
thing.
day. Yeah, Alex Pardee.
Nice. That's rad.
So,
Hey guys.
hi. So, I'm Brian, and I have a Substack that I update rarely. But I'm a teacher and writer and some other things. And I'll let these guys introduce themselves.
I mean, I'm friends with a hey guy with the really cool thing shirt. My name's Haley.
Yes.
I'm also Gory Movie on YouTube. I'm a horror host and the co-host of Horror Addicts, where me and my husband review all things horror. They already know me, so what's your name?
I'm Will.
Nice to meet you, Will.
Oh, I'm Seth. I'm a screenwriter. I
Oh,
wrote,
he's my cousin.
It's
Will.
Hey, Will. Well, I wrote Hellfest and Leatherface 2017 and a bunch of other silly things. And I made this picture because I like Halloween. At least parts of each Halloween. Which is, I think, why we're here.
Do you want to sit next to him since you guys planned it all
That's okay.
together?
We're close.
I'm Knightmare, and I co-host Horror Addicts with my beautiful wife here, Gory Movie. This is my beautiful cousin, Seth. In case you're confused. We also do the Oscars every year. We do award ceremonies, and we get different presenters like CZ's World, Dead Meat, and other podcasters, YouTubers, celebrities like Joe Bob Briggs to present the awards. I just gave Barbara Crampton her award that she won. So go check us out if you can. And I love Halloween. Thank you all.
So I think the idea here was to kind of talk through kind of like each of the stages of how Halloween unfolds, different timelines that kind of emerge through all the sequels, and just try to figure out like which are the ones that work, which are the ones that we might want to get rid of. Is there a way to kind of like cobble the ultimate perfect timeline of Halloween through all these various iterations? Wow. So I kind of wanted to start with just talking about the firsts, meaning like you've got obviously John Carpenter's 1978 version versus Rob Zombie's iteration of Halloween, and we can just treat this more like an open discussion since there's as many people as panelists. So, what do you guys like? Where do you fall on those 2 movies, Rob Zombie versus John Carpenter's film?
I was so young, I don't remember it.
The original.
Is that even a question?
Yeah.
I don't think you can compare anything to the original. It's iconic. But I will say, unpopular opinion, a lot of people don't like those zombie movies. The first one, I like the part that's all his own. I'm actually a really big fan of Halloween 2. I think taking it out of Michael Myers, taking it out of the franchise, I think it's a really good movie about how people recover from trauma in different ways. You know, we've got Loomis, who's very antagonistic, and that's unfortunately how some people deal with it. They get really, really mean. Annie, she's taking care of people. Laurie is having a nervous breakdown, and I think it's a really beautiful, underrated movie.
Yeah, that's actually my answer too. Is I love the original parts of the story. obviously he did it so his wife could have a part because she needs a part in all his movies.
And she's got a nice butt.
She does nice butt.
And she waited for the white horse.
And she, I don't get
They just like horses.
They was really pushing it in the second one to find something for her to do, but in the first one, the whole little backstory with Michael being little before Halloween night, the stuff at Smith's Grove, like I actually enjoyed all those things, and I think Tyler Mane is a good Michael. I think he's like super imposing and
He's scary.
and fun, and and if there's one thing Rob Zombie's good at is he has a very good visual eye. And a lot of the, it's a good mask. A lot of all the masks in that movie are great, and it's got a good visual style. Where it's weak is where it just tries to redo the exact moments from the original, which you can't top.
Yeah, it's those parts that are unique to the movie. Like I really, I love the part where, it sounds fucked up, but when his mom kills herself, that's so sad. But
Yeah.
we never really thought about that with John Carpenter's, because it's so outside of what the focus of the film is. But also the part where Loomis, he's like, I'm done working here. Goodbye, Michael. And you can see that he actually cares about him. And we know they have this really weird, like Ahab, Moby Dick type relationship. But there's also a little bit of this feeling like I failed you, and you really see it in Rob Zombie's.
Yeah, I'd say with Zombie, I love how they kind of do stuff with parent stuff. I didn't really necessarily need his mom to be a stripper and his stepdad to be some weird, crazy asshole.
He was awful.
But what did we get in the Carpenter, really? Other than they kind of look at him like awkwardly for a little while, like after he murdered his sister, and that's all we ever got of his parents. So at least we got something. And I also just want to say, I'm not a huge fan of the zombie version of it in a sense, but his casting is just amazing. So
Yeah.
Jeffrey Combs, or not Jeffrey Combs, but Dorff just stole it as the sheriff.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah, right. God, when
Dorff,
he finds Annie dead in the second one, that breaks my heart. That is so horrifying.
Yeah, obviously.
Hi, the Orchard Man. What's up?
Yeah. That's a Halloween
We
movie.
know this guy too. What's up, Will? This is Will.
But Danielle Harris, it was great, and like I said, when Brad Dourif finds her, that's the best acting in almost the whole franchise.
She's so incredible. Whereas Annie's kind of a throwaway character, to a large extent. Especially Bob and Linda. Like for the longest time, I couldn't even remember their flipping names. You don't forget Danielle Harris's portrayal of Annie in the Rob Zombie one. So it's not for me like an either or, because that's not a competition. But there's a lot of value in those two movies that gets overlooked.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I think.
What'd she do to you?
Thank you. That's one of the things that I think when I was rewatching them recently, I think I initially dismissed the Rob Zombie film pretty quickly, but then I was rewatching it. There were a lot of things that kind of stood out to me, and I was like, there's really kind of a lot that works that he's doing here that really works. There's this, and I think one of the criticisms is that it tries to explain Michael's backstory, and I'm like, I don't think he really does. Because there's this great opening moment, the opening moment of the film is with him loving on this rat, right? And he's his pet Elvis. He's like, hey Elvis, and he loves his rat. Then we cut to the chaotic kitchen scene. We go back up and he's watching blood off his hands because he just murdered his beloved rat. And then when he goes down to the kitchen, what's the first thing that he goes to? His baby sister, Boo, and he calls Boo. And he starts tenderly oh, hey Boo. And right there, it's oh, he's gonna kill her. It's that, he wants to kill her. Because he sets up this really kind of cool dynamic with, he loves this thing, he murders it. And then the next frame, he's downstairs and he's looking at his baby sister all lovingly, and you're like, oh, that's suddenly very creepy.
I think what Rob Zombie did with that is, I think the question was, is it nature or nurture that made this child become Michael Myers? And his answer is both.
Yeah.
And I think we can talk about it when we get to the newest ones, because I think there's another angle to that that is sort of touched upon in Halloween Ends.
Yeah,
and a little bit with the Jamie stories, but also in the original Halloween novelization, which is one of my prized possessions because I just randomly kept it from my childhood, and it's now worth $600.
So cool.
But we'll come back to that when we talk about Halloween Ends.
Yeah.
So, and I think there is kind of a neat split here, because obviously none of this exists without John Carpenter's movie, and there is this kind of idea of John Carpenter's, Michael Myers, this kind of unstoppable force of evil without explanation. Rob Zombie kind of brings in, muddies the water a little bit, and then we get each of them have part twos, and you already alluded to a lot with part two. So I just want to kind of talk about the two part twos briefly, and what we see there. Anybody wants
Something I've always said about John Carpenter, sorry,
No,
I've always said about John Carpenter, I love John Carpenter so much, but he wanted to do Halloween, he was offered a chance to make this movie. He took what could have been a very simple movie, no budget movie, made a really very successful film, and because there was money, they wanted him to do another one, but he was like, no, I am done with this baby, I'm dropping this shit off at the firehouse. I don't want it. It's not like Don Mancini in Chucky, where he's like, come on buddy, I'm gonna raise you up and teach you everything right. No, he's like, get this shit away from me. But he begrudgingly was involved in part 2, and I do think you can kind of feel the lack of love there. I mean, the first one, you talk about anybody in the cast, you know, they had the time of their lives. Like Jamie Lee Curtis was the best thing ever. They got to do the house together and stuff, and you feel that lack of love. There's still plenty of skill, beautiful cinematography and stuff, but it's also, it's a lot of Lori laying in a freaking bed with Starfighter, like checking in on her.
yeah, it's funny enough. I think the same is true for Rob Zombie's second one, is that he didn't really want to do it, and it's just there. I think he's more recently come out and said he was so, bullied and abused by the Weinsteins that he was like, I'll do it. It was like a 3-picture deal originally, and he wanted out of all of it, and they badgered him so much. He's like, fine, I'll do the second one if you let me out of the third one. So even for him, it was like, let's get this out and done. I don't really want to own it.
So I do feel like his answer to that was, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it my way, because they didn't let him have any control hardly with the first one. He had to go buy the book, we're going to make this exactly how we tell you to, and one of his consolations was, I'm going to do it my way. So I at least feel like he had some passion to it.
Sure.
But yeah, I agree, like both of them were kind of like brought in kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
It kind of just remakes the original second movie, but then it's just a dream.
Yeah.
And you know how I feel about dreams, like sequences. None of those bodies counted. No one died.
Yeah.
There is a lot of good value in the second one as well, but like you said, with just people how they're
You think
dealing
the
in
second one,
dream-
Rob Zombies, is a dream?
No, remember the whole part in the hospital is a dream in the beginning of
The opening
part
scene.
two.
Oh, okay.
It's
okay.
basically remaking
I
the
see what you're
first,
saying,
second
yeah,
movie,
yeah, yeah.
but then it's just a
Yeah.
dream.
That's an awesome, it has, God, there's so many like big stars that pop up. Octavia Butler's in there.
That's right, yeah, yeah.
Which is really
Yeah,
good.
Weird Al.
Yes, yes.
It's one and you talked about Annie, and that was one of the things that's why I think I really like when you talk about the direct sequels, I actually think Rob Zombies is a better movie than John Carpenter's too. John Carpenter
agree.
also famously said like he got through it by drinking like a 6-pack a night and like pounding on the typewriter, and it was like make the same thing but worse.
And he regrets the sibling angle, which
He
became
does.
so popular and launched all these problems.
Yeah, he said he kind of like put it in as like a throwaway thing, and he wishes he hadn't done it. But I love the fact that Annie comes back in the second one, and what's interesting is that she has a lot of scars, like physical scars on her face and her body, and so she wears her scars on the outside, but she's become the nurturer, like you talked about, like she's become the nurturer, where she was kind of like the party girl. And in the second one, it's Lori who's really damaged, and it just spirals out of control in the second one. And I love the parallel between the two of them, and I think that's part of why Annie's death in the second one is like so brutal, because it's like she was taking care of everybody, and it just feels so undeserved.
I also love it too because like there's this thing, especially like you look at Nightmare on Elm Street and Nancy and some of the other ones. There's this thing where you have to be okay. You're the final girl. You have to get it together. And you know what? Realistically speaking, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You'd be destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Loomis-
I also want to mention something though, because you mentioned Annie comes back. Nancy Loomis, who played Annie in Carpenter's '78, does return for part 3 because she plays the mom of Tom Atkins' kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like a little connection.
Yeah, that's
Fun facts.
does anybody have anything else about the part twos they want to talk about, or anybody?
No, I think we're.
I mean, the original part 2, kind of at that point, it felt like Halloween was then kind of copying Friday the 13th and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like where they were copying it originally.
Yep.
Part 2, I love part 2, 1981. And I love Dick Warlock and his kids. Actually Lance Warlock, the kid with the boombox. He sold me a guitar because he used to work at the music shop in my town. And I'd always like, your dad's a boogie man. But I like it a lot, but it just, that's where they were like, okay, we're going to copy the slashers that were copying us.
Yeah.
That's what I think really frustrates me about that movie is because what made Halloween so unique is Carpenter was like this master of suspense, and it was all about the build-up, not so much the kill. Whereas Friday the 13th, the joy isn't seeing the teenagers get killed. That's what the whole trailer was about, like 13 kill, all this stuff, you know. It's just to see them get hacked up. But Halloween was so much more about the terror of waiting for it to happen because he's there and you never know when he's going to strike. And then with Halloween 2, he's just copying from Jason's notes. It's just bloody kills.
And it's the longest night of Halloween ever. I mean, the sun was starting to come up as they were putting her in the ambulance, but then it's just back to being night.
And freaking Jimmy, he slips in the blood and then he's gone for the rest of the movie.
Dies of a concussion or doesn't, depending on your ending, I guess.
And why we have to kill Ben Tramer? What's up with
Well,
that?
that's important. He was the hottest kid in school, and
He
he was
was the
dressed.
hottest kid in school.
Michael Myers stole his look. He didn't
did.
know Michael Myers existed, and he was walking around dressed like that. That was his idea.
That was always my question, is like, why was he dressed as Michael Myers?
It makes sense later, because everybody knows, but why was Ben Tramer dressed
Well,
like
my friend has a theory that Ben Tramer was so gorgeous and he did a lot of volunteer work and he got horribly scarred, so he started wearing this face mask that looked realistic. Such an iconic thing that they started selling this mask in town. That's why you see it at the store, and that's why
That's
Michael
what
Myers was able to
Myers
find it so easily in multiple films.
There we go.
And Lori thought she had a crush on
Rest
him.
in
Boy,
peace.
that police car had a real crush on him.
Oh.
Let's talk about Halloween 3. Where does that fit in? How does it fit in?
Here's my
Does
hot,
it fit in?
here's my hot take about Halloween 3. Other than missing the classic Halloween theme, I think it's John Carpenter's best score of all his movies. And you can hear little bits of Christine, Escape from New York, and all these other great movies in there. It's like my go-to writing music is the soundtrack to 3. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that about me.
I mean, in hindsight, it doesn't fit in this time, like any of the timelines at all. It has nothing to do with the franchise. It probably shouldn't be a Halloween movie, but it's still a fun, awesome, amazing movie. I don't care what franchise it had to sneak into. I'm glad it exists.
I think it would be so easy to tie it together if you just reveal that there's a silver shamrock button on Michael's mask.
Yeah. See, here now, because one of the things is that there was talk of initially that it was they talked about the idea of doing an anthology of a Halloween movie set around Halloween, but the sequel kind of threw that off because when Halloween 3 comes out, where's Michael Myers? So the critical reception initially was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then it became later on, it became people have kind of reevaluated it and gone, oh, this is a fun movie. So this is kind of my question. Should we have only had one movie with Michael Myers? Forget everything else. If they had followed through, should Halloween 3 have been the next Halloween movie? And we go from a movie about Michael Myers to a movie about the Silver Shamrock Company to whatever else they came up with after that. But we only do one movie with Michael Myers and then follow the original plan and go anthology. Should that have happened? Is there a multiverse where in that world where there's only one movie with Michael Myers?
Well, movie audiences, Hollywood, give us something new. Hollywood gives us something. Yeah, this isn't what we
Exactly.
want. We want the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I need to, as uneven as it is, I like that we have so much Michael.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't, if you asked me what they should do now they should definitely, I think they should remake Halloween 3 and then go forward making anthology movies.
Yeah.
Which they won't, but.
I mean, honestly, I think I would have probably preferred that. Like, as a kid, Halloween was not like my franchise, it was more of a Jason girl. But what made Michael so scary was that we didn't know why he did it. He just has the black eyes. He's evil just because he's evil. That's the answer. That's all there. It made him so much scarier because you can't reason with him. You can't logic with him. After the second one, I'm not afraid anymore because I'm not related to the dude. So I'm safe. The movies stopped being scary after that because he's not coming for me. So I think, and also we would have had maybe better quality movies because John Carpenter and Deborah Hill were all aboard the anthology idea. So we would have had maybe a string of John Carpenter movies, and I think a lot of them probably would have been really good.
I would have been okay with them doing an anthology, but maybe coming back to Michael every now and then.
Yeah, bring him back.
If the return of Michael Myers, because that was a big deal, but if there had been 4 movies instead of just one, between that gap, that would have
You
been.
could do like an
fun.
American Horror Story thing where you come back in and check on it and stuff, but you don't have to run him into the ground because I think with Michael, the more we know about him, the less scarier
You
he
can't
is.
run him into the ground, he just sits up.
That's true. Like really dramatic.
The Undertaker
Such
and
good
Kane
posture.
started
Yeah.
stealing that.
Yep, 100%.
But yeah, think about that. Some of the John Carpenter movies we did get later on, they might have been Halloween movies, technically. They might have been in that franchise and still been the movies that we got, but just Halloween movies. Halloween, they live.
And I would have loved to see some. I love Halloween 3 because it's so creative. I actually think it's one of the scarier ones. It's one of the gorier ones in the franchise too. But I mean, like, where else are you going to get robots and body snatchers and druids and Stonehenge? I mean, there's so much
There's so
insane
much
stuff
in
in there. And for me, it totally works. And I don't think we talk enough because we talk about so much the cinematography of Halloween, but the cinematography in this movie is gorgeous. The scene where they're trick or treating.
Yeah.
I mean, my only complaint is like, if it was my town, I'd be like, you're selling 3 of the exact same mask. We're not gonna get the same mask as all the other kids.
That would have been something different. I wouldn't have died because I wouldn't want to look like everybody else.
Except for that kick-ass ballerina / pumpkin head.
But-
Shit had it going on.
But then, you know, like 30-something me had to go and buy all those masks. It's like, little kid me wouldn't have wanted them all, like at the time, but now I own them.
Yeah. So this is where things begin to really kind of branch, right? Because now, so 3 kind of lives in its own little bubble now. Even though I do think you could connect it in
I do.
to, I think you can easily connect it in, particularly with one of the branches. But, so then you've got 4, 5, and 6, which is referred to as the Cult of Thorn trilogy, which is a direct sequel to Part 2. Then you've got what I call the meta sequels, because they're the ones inspired by Scream. You've got H2O and Halloween Resurrection, which is kind of like wipes out 4, 5, and 6, and then is reset back to Part 2. And then you've got the most recent trilogy of Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends, which wipes out everything except the first movie.
Michael must be so confused.
Probably kills it.
Yeah,
That's actually why I'm killing everyone
Yeah.
at this point.
Where am I? What year is it?
So, and I think we can just kind of like open this up to talking about like the strengths and weaknesses of those 3 branches and which ones, like, does anybody have a particularly favorite branch that they liked of those 3 that was like, for you, like the way that it should have gone?
I mean, honestly, like, I want to pick and choose from each of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Because I think 4 has the best vibes of, I mean, other than the original, of like being like Halloween, just opening credits of 4, of like Dawn at the little farm town with the old Halloween decorations is like one of my favorite things. And like, you know, 5 gets goofy, and weirdly 6 is, I don't like the Cult of Thorn stuff because it robs, I mean, it weirdly is sort of ties into some of the source material, but it takes it too far. But like the same way, if we were the 3 of us were on a panel last year talking about the last Freddy movie, and that they just waited a little too long to make it, and it just was tonally so different because it was sort of from a different era. I think 95 Halloween 6 like also feels that way, and that it's just like, even when you get those very 90s opening credits, I'm like, this just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
But like, you know, and then there's bits of 5. I conflate 4 and 5 because they were more or less shot at one after another. And there's, you know, and little Jamie I love little Jamie, but 4 is way stronger than 5, obviously. I think 4 can exist on its own, in, you know, as original Halloween 2 and then 4, and then in the spirit of this panel, in my head, my head canon, I think you could go from the original to Halloween 2 to Halloween 4, and then the more recent trilogy, but I would reverse them in a way, which I could talk about when we talk about those movies. But I think in terms of, when I think of Halloween and I think of like the vibes of a Halloween film, it's the original run.
The way I kind of like to go, if I were to pick my path, I love Halloween 4, and I love that it had that really ballsy ending where she is now the killer. And as a kid, that was the first one that got me really excited. I had seen 78, and I was a kid. I wasn't that into it until much later when I appreciated it. Before, it had a young girl as the protagonist. I'm super interested. And then she's the killer at the end, and I was so invested in her.
Yeah.
And I really could not wait to see the next one because now she's the killer. And I loved this idea where it goes back to like, what is Michael Myers? And this idea that Michael Myers isn't even really, he's more of like the shell of this just unexplainable evil. And now that has passed into his niece, Jamie Lloyd, and now she's going to carry it. And I was really disappointed that they didn't follow through with that. I like 5, and it's got this kind of weird giallo-y vibe, and I do have come to really appreciate it. It's also really fucking funny. But I really wish they had followed through with that. Then they tease it again with Curse of Michael Myers, that it's going to go into Danny.
Yep.
Again, they don't follow through with it. So I kind of like to go from 4 and then skip to Ends, which is a totally different thing, because Ends is finally, I know a lot of people hate it, but it's the first one that follows through with this thing they keep teasing, that Michael is the vessel for this unexplainable evil that it can pass to anyone, so you'll never kill it.
That's what I was going to talk about. In the original Halloween novelization from the 70s, based on the original movie, it has an intro scene that's like a Samhain celebration in Ireland, and it's like old Druidy things, which they kind of had in Halloween 3. And there was a village guy who suddenly was overwhelmed with evil and killed people, and they put him away. And there's also hints, and so I love movie novelizations that just fill in the gaps, especially from the 80s. And like in the Halloween one, it also, Loomis talks about that Michael's grandfather also had like a weird little killing spree, but was killed before anything happened with it. So that idea was there from the beginning, that it was like, yes, it is the unstoppable, unknowable evil that John Carpenter talks about, but what it does is it could just latch on to some random little boy and turn him into that evil. So it needs a host.
Yeah.
So they did that with Jamie, and then they did it with Corey in Halloween Ends. And I think Halloween Ends is unfortunately 3 movies crammed into one, and one of them's great, one of them's okay, and one of them's bad.
One thing I will say, if you're one of the people who does not like Halloween Ends, especially because you talked about novelizations, the novelizations for all 3 of the David Gordon Green ones are fantastic. And I feel like we got kind of pushed into Halloween Ends, and they didn't cover a lot of what happened with Michael. The novelization covers it, and it's really, really good. If the movie had more of that stuff, and I think more mainstream audiences would have appreciated it more.
As for Halloween 4, though, like you said, it's the first vibe since the original that had that, and that's why it is my favorite sequel. Because even though there's some problems, like Laura was killed off like through a car crash or whatever they say, and Michael has wardrobe weirdness going on with his
Shoulder
mask.
pads.
So,
Love his shoulder pads.
his masks are inconsistent. Whatever's going on with his wardrobe malfunctions. I still love that one. It's still my favorite sequel. Just because they kind of redid the first thing, but now with a little girl instead of a teenage girl. I'm like, okay. I'm used to Freddy and Jason, and even at Michael at that point, killing a bunch of teenagers. I was a little kid when I saw part 4. So I'm like, oh shit, he's going after a kid. This is different now. I'm on notice. And Daniel Harris just nails it in that 4th one especially. And I wanted to see where it went, because it went full circle. You could just end it at 4. You could, because we started with Michael, killed his sister, all like that, and creepy, and his parents looking at him weird, to that's what Jamie's doing at the end of that one. It's just a full circle right there. Didn't need more, honestly.
I saw Danielle Harris talking once about how when she did the ones when she was little, she had the time of her life, and it was super fun because she knew Michael could never catch her, because that was sort of where all the tension laid. But she actually struggled when she did the zombie movies, because now she was one of the targets, and she'd never sort of felt it from that point of view before and struggled with it.
I actually also kind of, I have a in my head direction it could go to, where after part 4, it ties into Friday the 13th. Her and Tommy both get sent to an institution, and then they fall in love and make a whole bunch of little babies.
Yeah, this is not even the first franchise to tease that. I mean, even they changed it up with Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah,
he was now the killer, but then he wasn't.
Wouldn't it be cool if they teamed up against Jason and Michael Myers?
Oh my god, next generation.
How cool is that? Let me make movies. Craft people for me.
I was going to bring that up because Friday the 13th does the same thing with part 5, where it seems like they're setting up for Tommy Jarvis to be the next. And then it's like they got cold. I feel like they got
get
cold
scared.
feet because they know that people just want, even though they say they don't, they
They're
want
also
more.
But they
afraid that a
complained
kid
and
killing
5 came
people.
out and it
Yes.
was a different killer, so they couldn't make it Tommy Jarvis. Everybody wants Jason again.
Yeah.
Everybody wants Michael again.
Yeah.
Give me the thing I want until I don't want it.
Exactly. But also
But, like-
give me new stuff.
At the same time.
Exactly, because I think like in both cases, because I think Part 5 was a different director and it was a different creative team, and so like there was tension with Donald Pleasance too, because he didn't like the direction they were pushing him to go.
Yeah, he's
with-
insane in that movie.
Yeah, and he felt like they were making him too dark,
Yeah.
and especially in 6, he goes like that's a
He's like, take her, take the
Yeah.
little girl.
His face is starting to heal pretty rapidly from
Shouting
his being
at a kid in the
exploded in part
hospital.
2.
Yeah.
And he's very Wile E. Coyote, like a giant metal net.
yeah.
But I do love is that that is sort of the birth of the "Sir, this is a Wendy's" meme. the Luna saying he's evil. I looked at his eyes and they were black. And "Sir, this is a Wendy's."
I kind of miss it because we don't get we get him back in part 6. But I love the lovable Loomis from 4. I think my favorite scene is when he's in the car with the religious guy. He's like, "You're hot, aren't you?" It's so good. It's just so good.
And we
He's
hear
wonderful.
that he was Michael's like therapist, like psychologist in a sense. We never saw that though. We hear about it. So it's good to see him actually in work doing this with Jamie, like actually doing his job.
Yes.
Not running around with a gun, like telling everyone the boogeyman's here.
And I would have liked to see more of that too, because he talks about how he failed Michael. You could see more of him, like especially when Jamie turns, like him trying to stop that before the same thing happens again. It would have been a really cool way to go with Loomis, in addition to seeing Jamie. And it makes me even more sad when we get to 6, Curse, because I feel like they did her such a disservice.
Oh, I really
Yeah.
did not like that.
Especially when you get into like the producer's cut.
Yeah.
You know, like now she's
That's why she didn't do it. Daniel Ayers didn't do it.
they
Yeah.
didn't accept her price.
Yeah.
So she didn't want to get.
Well, she set that price because she didn't like
Yeah.
where they were going.
But yeah, they did her such a disservice, and they kill her off, and then the Cult of Thorn in the producer's cut, there's a whole scene where it's all, "No, Uncle Michael," like basically they made him rape her, and that's what, he's the father of the baby. It's icky.
It was, like I said, there was such a time gap between them. And I was so excited and ready for this movie to come out. Like I was like, oh cool, a new Halloween movie. That's gonna be awesome. And then like you said, there's 90s credits. So it just
Doesn't
felt
feel
weird.
right, yeah.
But I have to say, at that point in this time frame, like that was the most brutal kill that anyone's had. Like, well, depending on which version, the one where you use the tractor equipment and just impales her on it and like turns it on. But then like there's the version where she just gets killed in bed all like kind of pitifully. Hospital bed.
She's supposed to be like, what, 16? And she's like, oh, it didn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
And then we got Ant-Man, Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
He's a gem. Oh my god. Also in the producer's cut, throwing little runes at Michael. Ooh.
Beat him with little rocks.
I mean, yeah, 90s didn't feel right, but I will say that at the time I loved H2O. I hated Resurrection, and that's probably the only one of all of them that I've only seen when it came out, and I never seen it again. But I've gone back and watched H2O since, and it feels like a lovely little 90s style gem, but it doesn't feel connected anymore.
It's so weird because it's the same director that did part 2.
I know, it's crazy. But it's but it's also probably the worst Michael. It just,
Yeah.
They had a CGI mask at one point.
the mask is terrible, but
Yeah.
even his body language, it's like he's a mime.
In
It's like-
Resurrection?
no, in H2O.
In H2O?
I feel like he's a cartoon. Like he looks around a corner and then like sneaks
I
back.
love it with his little Chucky hair and stuff. Also, they didn't have the mask. That's why there's mask issues. But in the opening kill, which I think is so cool, you get that Mr. Sandman song again, and you've got the little kid from Third Round, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and I love that opening. They bring back Marilyn from part 2 and part 1. But yeah, I loved all that. That opening kill. That mask he's wearing is actually the same one from Curse, because they hadn't finalized their mask yet. So that's why it looks really good in the opening. And then they had a different mask. It's like Chucky hair. It's like probably made up. And then there's the CGI mask, which is only in it for a second.
It's just there.
But
You shouldn't be able to see his eyes unless you're
I
up close
agree.
and killing him.
I agree.
That's if there's one thing about the David Gordon Green ones that the
mask
mask
is
is
incredible.
perfect. The mask is so good.
And there was gonna be a scene in there where she talked about her daughter, like in a sense. So they were gonna kind of incorporate the other movies. But,
I think you could have.
But then they just didn't. They're like, it's confusing. She's got a kid right there, and the real tragedy is the barber's shop's right behind him, and I don't know what's up with his hair. I guess he did that on purpose though, because he didn't want to look. Like,
I also want to see
like
John come back. Like I said, I liked 4. But then I got really, really invested in H2O. That was the first one I could see in the cinema, because before that I had to watch them all on tape. And I remember it was so fun. That part where she cuts off his head, like everybody, like the front row got up and like actually cheered. It was the most fun I've ever had seeing a movie aside from maybe like Scream, which was also a really good crowd. But people were so into it, and I was so like pumped. I know there's flaws in it. It actually has. They use the same music from Scream. Like it's got a lot of problems.
Movie, honestly.
But I love Laurie Strode in it so much. Like
She's
the
fun.
way her character has evolved, and then they continue that with Halloween and the 2018 and Kills and that whole trilogy.
I actually was not pumped for H2O just because I was so pumped for Curse, and I was like, So when I heard that they were making H2O, I'm like, well, okay, but isn't she died in a car crash? Why is she back? I'm like, alright, but I went and saw it and I loved it. I did love it. I'm like, okay, it does feel like it was very much the 90s. It felt kind of like Scream or I Know What You Did Last Summer, but still, I loved it. It was good. But then I was like, okay, so I'm really, but now when they said Resurrection was coming out, I was pumped again, and then I saw Resurrection, I'm like, every time I'm pumped, it sucks. Every time I'm not pumped, it's good.
They did the same thing they did to Jamie Lloyd. They got us super invested in Laurie again. And like, okay, where is this going to go? And then they just kill her off. Like, that opening, I was so disappointed. Like, that's not how we should be treating these iconic characters that we've fallen in love with.
I actually would have loved that opening if it was the ending of the movie. But it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was like, because it was such a, like, now we're going to go do some reality show thing. I don't want this MTV reality show thing. This sucks. If that was, like, him actually hunting her down, because I liked there was, like, the inmate who, like, knows all the facts about the killers. I actually liked that scene and how she checks to make sure it's really him. I wouldn't have minded if she died that way, if it was, like, a whole movie of her first, not just throw away cold kill. It's like, what?
Yeah, it was. Oh, go ahead.
No.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's because I did rewatched H2O and Resurrection, and that was the first time I'd watched Resurrection since the first time I watched it. But it's funny watching it. Like it was so inspired by Scream. Like the music is so the scoring is so different. The graphics, the pacing, the character development, all of it just feels so different. And that's why at the end, when she cuts the head off, it's like it is that moment of like, oh, finally somebody like realizes that they're gonna come back. So like, end this once and for all. And so you think, okay, that was really smart. And then Resurrection, they undo that right away, and it's like, damn it, they undo that move. And then like when you go back and watch it, like I was like, okay, I guess that's kind of plausible the way they explain it. It still annoys me that they did it, but everything about Resurrection just feels so hollow. Like the last time we talked about how like in like Black Christmas the characters are all so likable. It's like the exact opposite in Resurrection. Like
There's nothing to like.
they're just like they're just there so you can like cheer when they get killed. And that's just not that satisfying.
No.
Like I said, they kill her off right away.
Which is.
And then it's like, okay, now a bunch of people I hate, and it felt like the studio was literally
It's a cash grab.
roundhouse kicking us and saying, "Trick or treat, motherfuckers!" like to the fans. It felt like
That's what was so bad
disrespectful
about
to
it,
the franchise. Like,
You have, I actually enjoy Busta Rhymes a lot in this movie, but it was a big mistake to have him poking like Michael Myers. Like, this is supposed to be evil incarnate, and he's getting pushed around by a TV producer. But we were talking about, like kind of, again, which ways can we go? I have always kind of, I consider part two, because I kind of picture Michael Myers' mask as a silver shamrock. So up until this point, I've seen Rob Zombie's things as their own thing. I go through here, I keep Season of the Witch in there. It's just kind of what's going on in the rest of the world. There's other places other than Haddonfield. And for me, H2O, I feel like part of the reason she has this horrible drinking problem and all this trauma is also the girl that she gave up. Like, I think she faked her death. And so she feels really guilty about that, and she knows what happened to her daughter, and that's why she's so possessive of John. John can't do anything because she's already failed one kid. And I really like to read that into it because I think it makes it so much more like
I like that.
personal.
Yep.
Because we love Jamie, and
Right.
you have to imagine that she loved Jamie too. She thought she was doing the right thing by getting her away from her because Michael always comes after her, and she has all this guilt because he went after her child instead.
Yep. So it does all fit together. Nice.
Do we talk about the David Gordon Green movies?
Yeah, let's do it.
I like the mask. Like I said, I think it's the best mask. I think it's also probably the best visually of all of them. Like the look and vibe is all just great. But I think there's an inherent Laurie Strode problem in that they did it. They made the movies in the order they made them. They weren't planned all at once, so they couldn't do it. In hindsight, being an armchair screenwriter, I feel like you almost should have done them in reverse with Laurie. Like have her start as happy grandma, who's gotten past the trauma, and then he comes back, rains hell, and then all her trauma comes back, and she builds the trap house that will eventually kill him. Because I think one of the things that happens is that they undo all the continuity. They say, even two, we're not doing the sister thing, we're going just back to the original. They're cheating. These movies cheat because they're still playing Michael Myers to be this ultimate evil. But in this continuity, in 2018, Michael's killed like what? Four people.
And that was 40 years ago.
And it was 40 years
Yeah.
ago. We have daily crimes that are worse than that. Like
Okay.
why he's not the boogeyman anymore. So even though continuity-wise it's all gone, the movie itself still relies on the entire legacy of Michael Myers for us to be afraid of him.
That's good.
The
And
other-
that's super cheating to me.
The other Laurie Strode problem is she's obsessed with Michael. He gives zero shits about her. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they do acknowledge that in Kills. But I feel like, especially 2018, they really build up like Michael versus Laurie. She is nothing to him. She was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's not his sister. He doesn't really care. He only goes after her when she gets in his way.
Yeah, the
You
new
know.
doctor takes him to her house.
Exactly. So it kind of this big battle, but for me, I was just like, she's come to terms with it. She's moved on, and he don't care. So I didn't need that. I actually think it was really interesting where I would feel like, finally, you're giving me that payoff for the evil that can transfer to another vessel. I thought it was really.
Yeah.
I didn't know
finally
that. Weirdly,
tried
that's
it.
my favorite story in Holiness. Is a story of Laurie's granddaughter as a survivor herself, being bonding as a misfit with like the new vessel for the evil.
Yeah.
Like that's the story I think is actually really fun.
I just wish they hadn't killed them off.
I know, yeah. No, the scene where they're on the motorcycle and it's got cool music, but like that's like the movie I really liked. And it's
Yes.
not a Michael Myers movie, but I still really like that movie.
Well, I mean, I do like in the sense that they do kill him off because if you're paying attention to him, he isn't an actually worthy vessel.
No,
He-
yeah,
he's
exactly.
taking it too
He fails.
personal.
Yeah.
Everything is personal with him where Michael just
Yep.
kills. That's all he does. He wants to go to his house and stare at his window and he just kills anybody who stops him from doing that.
I like this window.
But he is making it way too personal. He's like going after personal vendettas and that's not
Yeah.
the way of the vessel's evil. Like that's not pure evil, that's a
It's
bitterness.
not how we do things.
Right.
Exactly. So
Also, how evil can you be when you're getting bullied by the band?
I
kids?
know! One
Band
of the
kids.
meanest band kids ever!
dicks.
I remember that. So here's my last question, because we're kind of rapid getting towards the end. There's a Halloween series coming out. What's your wish list for that?
I want Silver Shamrock back. I
want
need
it
more of that.
incorporated somehow. Like even if because it's a series, I don't know exactly what their season plans are, but I want them planting seeds with Silver Shamrock on season 1 at least.
Yeah.
And it go somewhere eventually with it. It doesn't have to be the first thing they go with, but I do want it in there.
I just can't talk about it.
Oh.
Are you involved in this?
Trying to be, but
Sneaky
no.
devil.
I worked up a pitch because the second I heard it, like I wanted to get in, and my reps were trying to get me in the door, and it's already a clusterfuck, unfortunately, where you have, first of all, there's a problem in that Miramax only secured television rights, and then the Akkad family is still shopping feature rights. So now there might be competing Michael Myers projects.
Gotcha.
Which is already causing Universal, because Universal has the film distribution rights, but not the creative rights. It's all super backwards. Blumhouse and Miramax has been involved since like forever, but Blumhouse is definitely out now. But there's multiple competing things. The current plan is to just do straight reboot, start over with Michael from the start. But everyone's also saying like, but that's already been done.
Yeah.
We don't need to do that again. My pitch, which is slowly becoming an original thing on its own, is kind of like picking up on that thread of where does evil go. I would like to, like if Haddonfield needs a boogeyman, and it's sort of what they were doing with Gory, but I would like to dedicate that. I would like to see Haddonfield in the now, and people start to die by way of masked slashers, but there's more than one. And basically every time somebody got away from Michael, the whatever that evil is sort of has an eye on them, and now their kids or their kids' kids are now becoming this new generation, and now they're sort of like duking it out to become the next boogeyman.
I really like that. I like the idea that they kind of hinted on in Ends that the town is poisoned by his evil, and it becomes kind of almost like you get this idea that it's going to become like Derry, Maine, where the people are just fucked mentally.
I mean, he was living in the sewers.
That would be a cool setting for this new show. I like that, we have seen the Silver Shamrock Mask there, so I think with the series, you could explore so many different things. You can show the influence of Silver Shamrock, maybe even finally make an official tie to Michael Myers, which would be cool. But you could explore just the effect it's had on this town, like some individual side stories. And you can continue the Michael Myers thing by having it passed to somebody else. Apparently they sell a lot of this Ben Tramer mask, so you can,
Tramer made it famous.
I did. I do want I want Ben Tramer's backstory in there somewhere.
I was kind of sad he didn't actually show up in these trilogies.
I know.
I wanted to see, because he wasn't killed in this one, so I wanted to see an old Ben Tramer. Like, what was he doing?
That was a missed
super
opportunity.
hot.
I feel like that's who Laurie should have been, like flirting with instead of the sheriff.
I know, I ship it, dude. That's
agree.
like
But yeah, it was funny because I had a similar idea about the idea of like just centering it around Haddonfield as this kind of like, because what was the Stephen King show that was centered around the town?
Castle Rock?
Castle Rock, yeah. So like, this kind of like idea of like convergence, like this place where like weird things happen. You can combine different threads of different Halloween mythologies in there.
Yeah.
But it was like, I feel like there's a lot of potential there if they can sort it out. But that's becoming a thing too, like where there's Crystal Lake coming out, and this one.
And Welcome to Derry.
Right, they're doing Derry too. Yeah. So.
It's also more focused on Derry, Maine than Pennywise, so
Right.
it's kind of doing like what I think would be cool for the Halloween.
But yeah, for the series, it'd be cool if Shamrock and also maybe Cult of Thorn, as long as they're doing their own thing and not tainting Michael, I would be cool to have them involved, like doing like weird shit in the town, and it's just kind of crazy. Also, Gory might have impregnated somebody while he was evil, so maybe there's a new evil baby coming around, and that's why maybe Cult of Thorn will show up. Who knows?
Do you guys have any questions or takes or anything you want to throw out there? Any other ideas or thoughts that we didn't get to here? Anybody?
I think it would be cool to see the granddaughter again too, because she is still alive in that, and follow up with her. I don't want to see any more Laurie Strode. I know that's an unpopular opinion.
No, I think it's.
I think we're done with Laurie Strode. At least give it a break. One of the big issues I have with the David Gordon ones is the very on-the-nose writing. The evil dies tonight, all that stuff. With that part's a little grating, and how she just spells out everything. Suicide or cherry blossoms is just like, definitely need better writers.
Yeah.
Hey. But I want a break from her. I would also love, this is a new thing. Bring back Jamie Laurie. Bring back some characters we haven't seen for a while. Paul Rudd, right? I love him so much.
He's not busy.
What do you do?
MCU's
They actually thought about bringing him into the David Gordon Green one, so they thought he would draw too much attention on his own. But
Sure.
I would have loved it. I really didn't like Anthony Michael Hall.
Oh, it's Tommy.
Yeah, it wasn't for me, but
It was a lot. Go back to the
it was mostly that crazy dialogue. It's just like, okay.
Yeah.
I gotta say the unsung hero of Halloween Kills, when the mob starts to form at the end, is there's a woman with an iron who's ready.
Yes!
To
That's what she brings.
She's like,
Some have guns, bats, whatever weapons, she's got that iron.
And again, it's I think what's really scary, even scarier than Michael Myers, is the residents of Haddonfield. Even going back to 1978, one of the most terrifying parts is she goes to a neighbor's house in this sweet suburban town. She's pounding on the window and they close the blinds.
Yeah.
Then part 2, this bitchy girl's on the phone and he's like, she's talking about the neighbors and she's like, well, he'll probably beat her. She deserves it. Like, girl, what is wrong with you? The people in Haddonfield are messed up. We need to explore those guys.
Why do you think
a
that
lot
weird
more.
hermit was living down the river of
Yeah.
it that apparently didn't know anything about Michael Myers? His body washes up to him and he's like, well, I'll just keep you in my
I'm
house.
just
and
gonna
you can-
shave you
can
and
live."
wash you and be a weirdo.
Or the damnedest thing, he doesn't eat, he doesn't poop, he just stays there. I don't know, either way, it's a body that don't stink, I'll keep it around. Like,
Haddonfield
makes it smell better, I don't
people
know.
are Weird.
I don't know, weird people. in Haddonfield.
People.
Their band troupe goes around bullying everybody.
Exactly. They're the meanest band kids ever.
Weird thing.
Aside from Ben Tramer, who was a pure soul.
Looks a lot like Pasadena too, I mean, it's kind of
Here, oh my God.
There's all these hidden palm trees in a place that shouldn't
If
have
you
palm
guys
trees.
do go to Pasadena, it's a great place to just explore a lot of the Halloween stuff. You got Laurie Strode's house there. You've got Michael Myers' house there. Michael Myers' house is actually like on the same street as the street from part 2 with the kid with the boom box. It's like all within this little area, so it's really neat. Pasadena is basically Haddonfield.
They did move the house.
I know, but
it's still
now
there,
that
yeah.
it's there,
Roughly still there.
there's also a really cool house there where you can rent a room. They've decorated it to look like Michael's house, so you can rent a room that looks like Laurie's room. And they also show all the Halloween movies like projected on the back of the house. It's really,
Sometimes they'll
really
show other
cool.
horror movies, too.
And they've got tons of Halloween memorabilia
Oh,
there. So
yeah.
like Pasadena, it's Haddonfield. Go check it out. If you haven't already, you might have.
Well, any questions or comments here?
Will, buddy.
Good song.
I don't know, I mean, if they're gonna bring Michael Myers back in any form, I'm tired of hearing about him eating dogs, I wanna see him actually do it. I don't like it when animals get hurt in movies,
No.
but I do wanna see him eat a dog. Like just, rah, rah, rah.
Why doesn't he eat people?
Yeah, he likes eating dogs.
Too good to eat people, Michael?
Cannibal Michael.
Those
Yes.
people are for stabbing, dogs are for eating.
I guess so.
He's a complicated person.
And also, yeah, I have some questions too. That I mean, if they're answered, that'd be cool. Like, who the frick is Jamie Lloyd's dad? Is it Jimmy? Guy bumped his head. Is Jimmy okay? Did he have lasting damage from this?
Yes, that's
People
a great
need to
question.
know.
Yeah.
I guess he died in a car crash too, even though the news clipping didn't say that.
I just wanted to say something else. So there are also comics. Obviously, there's comics for everything, but there is a series of comics that is kind of a prequel, and it talks about Loomis, kind of before meeting Michael as a child, and then through that, like he had a wife and stuff. Like he goes through a lot of shit in these comics. And I know it's not canon, but kind of like a prequel exploring Loomis. I don't think that's what we're gonna see. That would be interesting. Like
Yeah.
give Laurie a break because Loomis is really one of the, I think Loomis and Jamie are the next two most interesting characters next to Laurie.
Yeah, I agree, because I think with Loomis especially, like, I love Loomis, and I love Donald Pleasance, like, as an actor, but in, like, because when we meet him in Halloween, this is just a guy who's, like, lost the faith. Like, he failed. And he could not figure Michael Myers out. And so, like, you see him, like, with guns and things like that, but he's clumsy, and he's, like, he doesn't really know how to use the gun, but, like, this is a guy who's a man of reason who's now, like, going, he has to die. Like, that's the only solution. And that's gotta be absolutely crushing for a guy like him. So, like, but that's when we meet him, like, when he's already at that place. You don't see that process. Whereas in the zombie one, like, I think he does start out as a pretty well-intentioned guy, and then becomes a pretty narcissistic
By my book.
prick.
Yeah,
by my
I feel
book.
like I said, that's him kind of lashing out from the trauma he's had.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't feel like we got to explore him as much as we could have in that Rob Zombie prequel. Just exploring him, like, what is his family life like? The comics say that he had a wife,
Yeah.
so was he ever, did he ever have family or anything? Because I feel like he got like all Captain Ahab on and got so focused on Michael, he probably lost everything
Yep.
that ever mattered to him. Like you said, he's a man of reason. It's his job to figure out Michael Myers, and he can't do it. It's this problem that has no solution. And to actually go from being somebody who's supposed to care for people to wanting to exterminate that person, that's gotta take a lot of time to really break someone down to that point.
That's why I really liked 4, because we finally got to see him doing that. It was like, he was getting over it, he was working with Jamie and stuff, and he was actually doing
Yeah,
his
it could've
job.
been like his
The
redemption
first time I've
before he
ever
goes
seen him do
crazy.
his job.
It's like, you want the girl, take her, in part 5.
Yeah, part 5 he goes insane.
crazy Phantom of the Opera, Loomis? You crazy. Your chain net, what you doing?
They said he's Wile E. Coyote in that. And then like it at least ended kind of cool because like there was the big jail bust and her and Michael's missing, and it left us waiting forever and
then
ever.
I remember that same feeling, like watching in the theater, being like, "Oh, who's the dude with the black boot?" And I was like, "This is gonna be great," and then nothing.
And then when we finally got Curse, like I said, I was pumped, but
Then it was,
And the House of Thorn could have worked if they just said that they were basically dictating where that evil went, like
Yeah.
kind of orchestrating it. But when they make, you know, Michael nothing more than a pawn, it's just under their control. Like it really sucks the terror out of him as a character. But it could have worked. You can bring that back into a series and kind of rework it to where it still makes the evil that they're working with the ultimate, you know, terror. That they're more servants to it.
they're trying to control it. They're trying to weaponize it. Doesn't mean they aren't going to be successful because it shouldn't be able to control it. It's just evil.
They're just trying
Unexplainable.
to dictate where it goes.
Exactly.
More like
Unexplainable
people who are servants to it, or you know, even worship this evil, than people who are, you know, in complete control of it.
But even if he's the dad or not, depending on the cut, he's just chilling down
Ask
there.
Gory.
He's just chilling down there with all these weirdos and like not killing them. It's weird. like why? Why is he just chilling down there? Still wearing his getup.
It's another jumper.
Do they have a nice window down there?
Why
for
is
him
he
to stare
obsessed with
at?
mechanics? Another question. What's up with that? Was his dad a mechanic?
Yeah.
People want to know.
I don't know.
Is that how we learned how to drive?
Met his dad.
How did he learn how to drive? There actually is a short film on YouTube.
By Adam Green. It's really
yes.
good. Kane Hodder plays Michael Myers.
Yes.
So Kane Hodder technically has played like every slasher.
He has. He was also Freddy's hand.
Yeah.
Jason
Yes.
He was
Momoa.
also in Leatherface, the original
Yeah.
Leatherface. He filled in for a scene or
That's
two.
a treasure. Treasure.
Well, thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys have anything you want to pitch or plug real fast before we wrap up?
Please check out Horror Addicts and Gory movie.
We got cards if you guys want to come check us out. I'm Gory B Movie on all the things. It's a pretty unique name. My parents were pretty proud of that, so you're not going to find any other ones.
Go watch my movie. Oh wait, that was earlier today. Sorry, but we played the Orchard Man here earlier today.
With the Orchard Man here.
Yeah, there he is. So hopefully we'll have more movies even next year and stuff. So.
If you want to write your own horror movie, I have the Scary Movie Writer's Guide that I wrote. It's on Amazon.
Cool.
It's like a workbook, leads you step by
You
step.
wrote that?
I do remember you actually. I remember you.
I had to do something while the writers were on strike.
There you go.
Check out his movies. If you missed the introduction, he wrote Hellfest and the Leatherface prequel. He wrote a series Light as a Feather. He worked on lots of stuff. So yeah.
Things
You also have a really good Substack.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything that's in there is in this book.
Oh, cool.
That's what the book became.
How many copies you got on?
And I know all the stuff
I
he
should
worked
have
on.
bought like a stack of
I
them.
want to buy one of these.
Court adjourned.
Or if you came in late and you want to,
Hey, you guys want these? They're cool.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna keep this. I'm gonna keep these, but there's more for you
yeah,
guys.
there's plenty.
I feel like we're all friends. What were your guys' names? I mean, who are you? Ben. Nice to meet you, Ben.
They're double-sided. So just grab one.
Nice to meet you, Amy. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming.
These guys in the front row are all our friends, and we know that guy. So you know, I feel like we gotta.
So we're the outsiders.
Yeah. The outsiders are cool. I read that book.
Friends over here. People that just want to
But yeah, now you guys are friends too. So
All right, so how was Crypticon?
awesome.
Bomb. Long, awesome, great weekend, but a little tired, that's for sure.
Tell me about your panels.
Well, what did we do Friday? I did a movie for every holiday. You did what on Friday? Yeah, that was on my Friday.
Friday, I did movies that were based on true stories
Oh, that's
with
right.
Bob Foster and Kim Dada. It was really, really fun because we talked about not just what some of those movies are, not just listing them off, but why that appeals to people. And I think we had a really cool discussion about it.
Speaking of movies that are based on true stories, we have our own Orchard Man here.
Based around events.
And the movie The Orchard Man played today, based around true events, and that was a lot of fun. I think it was pretty well received. People seem to get the humor of it, so I think it did pretty
How was
well.
the crowd?
Good. It was good. They seemed into it. So, I mean,
A lot of laughs.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was hoping they were gonna do.
Yeah.
Some people, they get the humor, they get it. So, That was a lot of fun. We had Ronnie Angel come up all the way from California. This is his first Crypticon in a while.
Zach holding the camera.
Zach,
Yeah.
the camera, Throw Feather Productions here. Also, both of you guys played a big part of that movie. Appreciate it. And yeah,
That's the scariest part of the movie.
exactly. We did a bunch of panels on Saturday. I can't even list them all. But
Saturday was either I was doing a panel or I was watching his panel.
Exactly.
Like, there was no time to eat, honestly. It was a lot.
You had 2 in a row, and then I had 2 in a row, and then you had 1, and then I had 1. It was just like.
I really enjoy the panels best, and what's wonderful about Crypticon is we've been coming here since 2010.
My first was 2009, but then we got together, and we've been coming since
Yeah,
2010.
so it's been
We've only missed
14
1 year.
years.
It was 2011. We missed
Yeah.
1 year.
And we've been paneling for over a decade. So these people here are people we've paneled with for many, many years. It's like horror summer camp. And we've really got a good rapport. So when you're on panels with them, I feel like we're having these really good discussions and getting into like, analysis, the academics of these things. And it's just fun to have these in-depth discussions that are beyond just, oh, I like that movie too. Like, I feel like we've had a lot of those. I did Evolution of the Final Girl. That was so cool because not only did we have a packed house, we had a panel of just women and really cool, smart, just badass women.
Yeah.
So I was so proud to be on that panel with them.
I loved my physical media and why it's important.
Yes!
I work at the time capsule. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I do. I sell VHSs for a living almost, and a bunch of other awesome toys and video games. But it's just very important, and I know it's dying, but I'm gonna fight the grain on that. Physical media is rad.
Yeah, I think you did a lot of good with that one, just putting out the message of why it's so important that we continue to buy physical media and support that, art form.
If you don't own it physically, they can take it away from you, or they can alter it, and you can't do anything about it. You might not like the weird new George Lucas cut they give to it, so.
Right now, Supernatural is streaming without Carry On My Wayward Son.
And that is a shame.
I have it on DVD, so not my problem.
Exactly. So, yeah, that's kind of what we did, and we partied really hard last night. It was a lot of fun.
I was pretty responsible.
Yeah, you sure were. And then today, I met Barbara Crampton. I gave her her Oscar that she won for Jacob's Wife a couple years ago, but she now has it, and she thanked me for that. Also, go check out the Suit of the Flesh that just came out with her.
So incredible, directed by Joe Lynch. Also has Heather Graham. Joe Lynch is calling it the Heather Graham-a-sance.
Yes.
Pretty great.
In case I run into Heather Graham, I got the same one with both of them on it because I would like her to autograph it as well.
It's also one of the few where it's loosely adapted from the H.P. Lovecraft story, The Thing on the Doorstep. The movie's better than the book.
It is. It's better than the source material. They actually somehow did it.
So good.
So check that out. And yeah, now we're finally done with all our panels, and this is kind of a wrap. Our obligations are done. We can just enjoy.
Nice.
Yeah, we've come to the conclusion we used to have to pack the car up on Sunday and head back. Today is the day where we sit in the hot tub when we get to be old people. Dan is gonna rub my feet.
I'm gonna rub my back. We'll rub a lot of rubbing. All right.
I just gotta say one thing. It's like I found the one thing I found just random through with Billy Zane's here from Titanic.
Yeah, well,
I know he was like I know he was like Tales from the Crypt and all that other stuff, but I was like, that's the dude from Titanic. What the fuck?
It's just like in Zoolander. Just listen to Billy Zane, okay?
And his like fiance.
Listen to your friend Billy Zane.
Oh, I like him, but it was like that was like the most grossing fucking like Titanic was like the most grossing movie here, and like wow, he's here.
Here was the final girl in Knightmare Part 5.
I mean, they say he's the villain of Titanic, but I mean, his fiance cheated on him with a little boy, and like they left a big "F-you" naked drawing of her for him to like mock him, and they stole his expensive diamond necklace. Was he the villain? I mean, he picked up a kid and he saved them at the end. He saved that child.
You know, he probably died and like returned as the demon in Tales from the Crypt. That's why he's so fucked up.
But yeah, we got Billy Zane, we got Barbara Crampton, we got Jeffrey Combs, we got a lot of great people here, and go meet them. I love that about Crypticon. That was like what we first started coming to Crypticon.
Billy's here too, Punish.
Yes, Punish is here.
The
The girl
dude
from
from
Hereditary, she didn't even lose her head. Yeah.
dude from Man in the High Castle was here.
The nuns here. There's a lot of people here. And it's just every year.
The guy from Land of the Dead.
Yeah, exactly. So every year,
And great vendors too, don't forget.
lots of great vendors, a lot of amazing artists selling all kinds of cool horror-themed art, and sometimes not even horror-themed art. All sorts of good shit. All right.
Cool. Yep. And where can people find you?
Find us on Horror Addicts or the Gory Movie channel. That's on
Both of
YouTube.
them are on YouTube.
Yep.
We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and
Yeah,
all
all
the
those
things.
things.
All right.
Find Horror Addicts. Find Gory Movie.
All right. That'll work.
See you next year.